Hello, and welcome to another episode of Life Beyond Clinical Practice podcast. Today's episode is for optometrists because I want to pay homage to my profession, a profession that served me so well for so many years, but also a profession which I so closely relate to when it comes to career stagnation, lack of fulfillment that so many feel. I recall a time in my clinical practice when I asked myself, is this all that I'm going to be doing for the next 30 years of my career? I knew that I wanted more, and so I had to explore pivot paths out of clinical practice. So I hope in today's episode, entitled Seeing the Bigger Picture for Optometrists, that you will find something that can help you see what your next chapter should be about. So I know for a fact that so many optometrists feel boxed in the exam lane. You have patient after patient in your chair, and it seems so monotonous and routine, and you feel like you can do an eye exam with your eyes closed. I know, I've been there, felt that way, and really wanted to stretch myself outside of that closed consulting room door and the boxing in of just the mechanics of an eye exam, really. And so this episode is about showing you that you are more than that job and that job title, and that you're equipped for so much more. If you've been thinking about what's your next move, what else can you do outside of that consulting room and outside of the routine and mechanics of vision correction, vision therapy, vision rehabilitation. If you're wanting to expand outside of optometry, I hope that today's episode helps you to see what's possible. So let's start with why so many optometrists feel stuck. Now, I think the first thing to address is really professional identity. Many of us are tied to those clinical titles, tied to our competency as clinicians and delivering clinical care. And so we question whether we have skills outside of that. We question whether we can add value outside of that role. And I want to just debunk any ideas that you can't add value and say, absolutely you can. But there's a path to identifying the type of value that you can add and the kinds of roles that would best suit you with your transferable skills, your personality, your values, the things that matter to you. It isn't a one-size-fits-all model. This episode is not about saying, yes, you can become whatever. No, because it's so unique to who you are and what you want out of life. And so, yes, don't be tied to your clinical role, competency, title is the first thing I would say to getting unstuck. And then the second big one is fear of instability or the fear of starting over. And that's a very real fear because, practice is predictable. It's stable. It's kind of what we know, right? And we know that we have relative job security as a clinician. But when you're stepping outside of that, you're stepping into vulnerable territory. But vulnerability is on the edge of growth, and you're not starting over. I say this repeatedly on the podcast and on the content we put out. It's not starting over. It's merely building from where you're at. And vulnerability is a natural response to change. That doesn't mean that you're making the wrong decision. It just means that it's going to take time to get to a place where you feel safe and secure again because you're navigating new territory. So the fear of instability simply means you're leaving the familiar for the unfamiliar, and you need to brace yourself for that journey of transition until you get to a new phase of professional stability. The third thing is not knowing what else exists. And this is why my podcast exists. Life Beyond Clinical Practice is to help you to see that there are options, there are possibilities, to help you to carve out a unique path for you that's right for the phase of life you're in, that's right for your strengths and interests, right? And so we can look at various options based on those things to carve out a career pivot path for you. So if you listen to many of my episodes, I give examples of the kinds of roles that clinicians can pivot into. But for optometrists, I think in the follow-up episode to this, I'll be going into a little bit more detail about the kinds of roles optometrists can typically pivot into. They can give you some ideas. Today is really just about the mindset shift of what is possible and that it is possible to explore career paths outside of clinical practice. The second part to this episode is really my underscoring that there are personality-based pivot pathways. I've mentioned it a few times already earlier in this episode, that each pivot path is unique to the individual. So it starts with your why. What is the reason you want to pivot? What's missing for you? What are the things you wish you had that you don't yet have? And how can we help you to get there? So you may be an innovator, right? So things like startups, product development, medtech, those may be the kinds of roles that work for you. Or you may be someone who naturally likes to teach. You find yourself at the end of your consult, educating your patients and spending quite a bit of time just going through things with them. So there may be an educator in you, either an academic, a trainer, a curriculum developer, a facilitator, whatever that role might look like. Or you may be a strategist, right? Strategists work well in policy roles, research, medical writing. If you find yourself naturally thinking of solutions to problems, or, new ways of doing things, then those are the kinds of roles you should pursue. You may be a connector, someone who loves people. You foster associations and partnerships. You can be a corporate trainer, go into business development, because those are all based on relationships. Finally, there's the builder, and that can look like entrepreneurship, like a consultant, or even like a practice owner. So you building on your role as a clinician, and then you're looking into practice ownership, or perhaps group ownership, or networking with other health professionals in a multidisciplinary partnership model, whatever that looks like, right? Knowing what your personality type is and what suits you is where you can start looking at pivot paths. So personality and skills are what should align with the next phase of your life, right? Roles that really resonate with who you are and what you have to give. So in summary, your optometry career is a foundation, not a box. I think historically it's been seen as a box. People have felt boxed in, but there's so many more options these days. And I want you to know that it's out there for you if you're willing to take the journey, take the leap into creating a new pivot path, that you will find what works for you. But understanding that it's a journey, it's a process, but it's totally a journey and a process that's worth it. Because on the other side of that, you will have a much more fulfilling career, one that feels authentic, one that makes you feel like you accomplishing your full potential. You've stepped into your genius, one that doesn't feel like work anymore. All of these things, I believe, are rights. They're not privileges. They're what we should all aspire to. Life is too short to just have a job and just work for a paycheck. At the recent Career Pivot Roundtable Summit, I said we should pursue purpose beyond the paycheck. And that's my challenge to you if you've been feeling stagnant, boxed in as an optometrist, wondering what more is out there, what else is out there that you know you can't do what you're doing now for the next 15, 20 years, however much longer your working career may be. Then it's time to design a pivot path. Reflect on what archetype feels most like you, and then start carving out that career pathway. And it may take a couple of months, it may take a year or two, but eventually you will step into the kind of roles that just feel right. So I hope that this episode helps spark something in you, spark interest. And if you're ready to take that journey, then connect with me, book a strategy call. Let's see where you're at and what your likely next steps should be. And we can put together a package to help Develop that pivot plan so that you can work towards a career that's better aligned and more fulfilling and leads you to the next level of your personal and professional development. Till next time, goodbye.